Okay. Let's see. We're live? We are. We're live. Okay.
Ah,
Eh.
ah.
Guten Tag, Dustin.
Guten Tag, Hooper.
Hooper.
Herr Hooper.
Oh, is hair bad or is hair like a
It's
normal?
like it's like Mister, I think.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm questioning myself.
I hope it's okay.
I hope it's
You
fine.
never know.
I'm gonna Google it.
We are committing all of this to digital video somewhere, so we should.
Yes, it just means Mister.
Okay. Thank God. All right. Yeah, I will
All
accept
right, good deal.
Herr Hooper.
Herr Hooper.
Good evening, and future to listeners as well. Welcome to the HooperCast, episode 165. Yeah, tonight we're going to talk about Jojo Rabbit and a couple of other things. So if you are listening live and you're wondering if you can't read, that's what we're talking about tonight on the show. So yeah, what else did I want to say to you? I don't know. Join us though. Sit
Wow.
down. This is about an hour of film talk or so. And before we get into the movie tonight, I wanted to talk about a couple of other things, and then we'll warm ourselves into it.
Let's do it.
Did you have a good weekend, dude?
I did. Yeah, it was pretty relaxing. It was good, and back at work. So
Woo!
yeah, it was a good last little weekend of nothing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You said your commute was super quick too.
It was, yeah, the road is like bare. And
Yeah.
so I got to work super quick and then came home super quick. And yeah, I'm digging that.
I've been saving so much gas over the past several months working
I
remotely.
know.
It's been really nice.
I've been saving gas and food because I knew, yeah, Dustin, you've got a problem when it comes to Chick-fil-A. I just didn't know how bad it
How
was.
much you were spending?
Until like I look, it's like the bills come due and I'm like, well, let me go check. And I'm like, oh, I have money in there. And then I'm like, oh, I haven't been to Chick-fil-A in a long time. That's why
Bill always comes due for Chick-fil-A.
it does. Dude, if they did like a subscription service, I'd be all over that. Like
Oh,
like
like
$50 a month, unlimited sandwiches.
Oh boy, that'd be so dangerous.
That'd be awesome.
Oh man,
I wonder if that's the future of restaurants.
you know it's weird. We keep talking about like the future of the theaters, and film related things on this show, but and we talk about food, but we never talk about how those two things intersect. And
Yeah.
that is interesting that you'd apply the movie pass model to to Chick-fil-A.
That would be awesome.
Call it chicken pass.
Chicken pass. I like it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, chicken pass.
Chick-fil-A.
Ooh,
Ooh.
that's good too. Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Eat. No, I don't know. There was something else. I can't remember.
Yeah.
That petered out. No, dude, I don't know. I mean, that you could, but you'd have to. The market would have to be such that like people are not eating fast food anymore. Which,
Yeah, I was gonna say at like $6. I think I don't even remember exactly how much it is. It's like $6 for like a full number one combo, I guess. And it's like, so if you were to extrapolate that out and you want to give a monthly subscription, like $50 would be too low, wouldn't it?
it depends.
I don't
You'd have,
know.
like a premium tier.
Yeah, because you're talking about going 10 times,
Yeah,
like then the consumer's getting the better end of that deal.
yeah. It's
Unless their profit margin is like ridiculously awesome and they can do that, but
all of these things you're pointing out is exactly why MoviePass failed.
yeah, pretty much.
Like,
They didn't think it through. They were just like one low price, all the movies.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh crap. Oh no.
we forgot about the overhead.
We forgot about everything."
Yeah, dude, we had a pretty relaxing weekend too. Got some stuff done off the checklist, and it was a lot of which included dust related things. So my sinuses are all like cracked and dry right now because of that. So that's nice. But a relaxing weekend nonetheless. I think finished a couple of books.
Nice.
Lovely segue into the first thing I wanted to talk about. One of them was a short story or a collection of short horror, which my mom caught a glimpse of. Like, what are you reading? And like opened a page. It was just like, oh, it was like not my favorite.
It's a murder book.
Yeah, it was extremely explicit. Like this like immortal butcher who was in charge of flaying the souls, like pulling people's souls out of their bodies by pulling their skin off. It was the wrong story to open up.
Right.
The other one,
I knew I shouldn't have let you read Harry Potter.
That's a
callback to an old HooperCast.
That's a callback all the way to Hooper's childhood. So one of the things I did read though was this book I wanted to just briefly mention on the show. See, I'm injecting literature into this movie podcast, but this is a book about movies. It's called The Big Picture. The Fight for the Future of Movies. It's by Ben Fritz. Ben Fritz is a reporter. Well, see, at the time of the publishing, he says he is a reporter for the Wall Street Journal covering the entertainment industry. So later on, when I recommended the book to someone else on Twitter, Ben Fritz responded to the tweet and said, "Hey, thanks for reading my book." And I clicked on his page. I was like, yeah, it's been a couple of years since this thing came out. And he is now like the West Coast bureau chief for the Wall Street Journal and writes entertainment news. I was like, oh my God, that guy moved up in the world. Yeah. Regardless, the book is fantastic. It's like I said, it's called The Big Picture. It's been, I've heard it referenced a couple of times on the internet. But it's about all the things we like talking about. It's about how here's how the studio system used to work. And then here is how, here's how the advent of streaming and the decline of DVD sales changed all that. A big part of the revenue stream for studios used to be DVD sales, and then when Netflix started and streaming started, that people stopped buying DVDs, and then they're like, oh my God, how are we going to make money? And then it became what you see today, which is the only thing that we can risk money on are established brands, and studios and studio filmmaking shifted from mid-budget films with original ideas that starred known quantity. The known quantity used to be the actor. It used to be, it's Tom Cruise. I don't know what The Last Samurai is, but it's a Tom Cruise movie, so it must be good. It's going to be good. And then you get to see this really cool story, this original story, starring a person that you know and like. And it shifted away from that into the brand is what is the known quantity. It doesn't matter who directs the film anymore. It doesn't really matter who the star is anymore. It doesn't really matter which studio makes it. It matters what the intellectual property is, and really and shifted the power from the directors and the stars and more into the hands of the producers and the writers who are in charge of essentially changing the film industry into the TV industry, like we always talk about. Yeah. And especially with there's a big section in there about Disney and Marvel and how they effectively changed the studio filmmaking system from star vehicles with middle budgets to essentially a gigantic television show with, where every script before it's written the story has to be broken beginning to end with the overseeing producer to make sure that it fits in with the arc of the entire series. And that was only seen on television until 15 years ago. Yeah. The book is great. And like I said, it was a joy to read because I'm just sitting there like, it's like, what was the last one I read? The last one I read that I told you, Dustin, I can't remember what it was now, but the last book I read where I said what I liked about it was like, for most of the book, I'm going, yep, I knew that. And then there's a few instances in between there of, I didn't know that part though. And that enriches what I know. That's what this book is.
Was it the Bob Iger book?
Yes, it was. It was the Bob Iger book. The name has escaped me. That's a great one too. And there's a good bit in here about Bob Iger as well. So this is from, and a lot of this is framed. The reason this information is so readily available, it's not only is Ben Fritz an entertainment reporter, so he knows how the studio system worked. A large portion of the insight into this is told through the eyes of Sony, and because of the hack and all the emails that got exposed, we actually there were so many emails that had the private conversations between Amy Pascal, Tom Rothman, and all the people over at Sony in the midst of the hack and what was going on with the interview, what was going on with Spider-Man, that whole story. There's way too much to cover here. You should really check out the book. I got it at the library, but I would have gladly purchased this book because it's worth a reread, and it's really educational when it comes to just everything we like to discuss on this show. This book covers, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So
Sweet.
That's the big picture. The Fight for the Future of Movies by Ben Fritz. That was a pleasure.
Awesome.
And things that, like I said, franchise filmmaking, remakes, sequels, all that sort of stuff. So that's already been on the brain, and it's not a coincidence that this. Sorry, it is a coincidence that this was one of the stories today, but not because it's so common. This story from Deadline today. Did you see this? They are remaking Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I did.
From Paramount Pictures with Will Smith and Kevin Hart. And one of the things that they talked, I don't know what Westbook is. Do you know what production company Westbook is? Who owns that?
I don't.
I would think that it's Will Smith, but his was Overbrook, and I know that because it's in the book so much with his partnership with Sony. I know Hartbeat is obviously Kevin Hart. The point is, this is fitting the model of those types of remakes and established brands where you have the stars coming in to remake a known quantity, but those stars typically, if they're big enough, have their own production companies to actually be the ones who are fronting the money and have control over the content. And then it is, it is either a distribution deal or a financial shared thing with the studio, with Paramount, because Paramount, even if it is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which is an existing film, it's not like it's a super strong brand that you can like bank millions off of. So that's the only thing about this that makes me feel like it might be a passion project, because it's not like a gigantic money grab on its face. At the same time, it's a Will Smith and Kevin Hart film that's a remake with Paramount, who needs a hit because it's not a gigantic studio anymore. I was sad when I saw this news, Dustin. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but I do like it. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you that it's not like the IP is super valuable or anything, but I think at the end of the day, it's probably producers or whoever sitting down and saying, all right, look, Will Smith, Kevin Hart, both bankable names, both with charisma. Let's put them in a movie together. What do we do? And instead of somebody saying, hey, let's do something original, which I would think would get just as many people in seats. Somebody said, well, let's remake an existing film. Regardless of its strength, it's got to bring something to the table. And so, but my thought is like, Will Smith and Kevin Hart are both bankable names enough. I don't think you need a remake of anything. I think you just put them, I mean, shoot, you don't even have to have a script. Just put the two of them across from each other on a table and I'll watch it for 2 hours. Right? So I don't see the point in remaking something. But I don't know. I mean, look, I'm interested just inherently in seeing it because I do love the two of them. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's particularly creative to remake this film.
The article, the article on Deadline goes through like so much of like, not only was it just a good comedic idea, but John Hughes really pushed for the heart of it with these two stars with John Candy and Steve Martin. And I'm like, you clearly love this film. Like the whole article, the article was not like a downer about this happening, but it was clear from the writing, like the writer was like, this is a great film that I love. And I couldn't help but think that he or she must have been heartbroken just having to report this news.
Right.
I mean, it goes without saying that like I'm not really interested in this idea at all. I mean, I always try to imagine, first and foremost, when this stuff happens, like imagine that this wasn't an existing property. Imagine you heard about this premise and this name and these two stars, and I'm like, do I want to see this?
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, show me the trailer. But then you come back to reality and you add this element of, okay, show me a fun trailer, but then somehow make that trailer so good that I'm no longer bothered by this. And that doesn't really happen, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't care when they remade 21 Jump Street because I wasn't attached to that brand. But if I had been, I feel like I would have been like, I don't know, this looks really cool though. It looks like they're really aware of this brand. I mean, they're incorporating the old, the old concept of the show with, high school cops into this story. It's not just a straight up, you know what I'm saying?
It's not a straight up ripoff. It's at least somewhat aware of itself.
Yeah. They're trying to build on it.
Yeah. They build on it. They flip it a little bit. And maybe they'll do the same thing here. I've said for a long time I want to see Will Smith do a straight up comedy, and hopefully this is that. So I'm interested, but it's not because it's planes, trains, and automobiles. It's sort of in spite of that. It's because of the strength of the actors, and it's also weird because Hollywood doesn't. We just talked about this a little bit. Like Hollywood doesn't make this type of film anymore. That was a star vehicle for its 2 stars, and it I can't imagine was a huge budget, and I just don't think it was that big a deal. I can look it up, but I think it was mostly just a star vehicle, and so it feels sort of the same way here, but more desperate because it's not an original idea. So I don't know.
It's really, really weird. I don't know which of them decided like, hey, you know what movie I don't know, dude. Like, I don't know who the driver here is, whether it's Kevin Hart or Will Smith or either of them. You would think that Kevin Hart would be the one who'd be the closer admirer of Steve Martin. And you'd think that maybe it was his idea. Like, hey, I really love planes, trains, and automobiles. But at the same time, dude, if I'm really picturing Kevin Hart feeling that way towards the film, I don't picture him in the same sense going, yeah, you know what? I think I'll just remake that classic film.
I feel like this is a Paramount thing. Like I feel like it's somebody who sat down and said, what valuable IPs do we have? Oh, look, it's planes, trains, and automobiles. Mm-hmm. Who are 2 actors we can get? And they said, oh, Kevin Hart, because he's big right now. And then who do we get to play opposite him? And then the thought was Will Smith. And then it just kind of, that was it. Like that's all the thought that went into it. It was, we need something, and here are 2 people that can give us the thing. And I don't see it as any more in depth than that.
What's crazy to me, especially after reading the book, is the idea that I always sort of suspected this to an extent, but it became really apparent in the reading of the book, where you get the sense that if you think about every single angle of why this thing is happening, if you like to sort of just delve into the infinite possibilities, like whose idea was this? Like, what if it was Kevin Hart's? What if it was Will Smith's? Eventually you get to like, what if no one wants this to happen, but they figured the safest hands are their own. And that sometimes that sort of got softly confirmed to me while reading the book, because you get this sense that the 2 of them are going, all right, this is going to happen anyway. The script isn't terrible. I hate that this is happening, but they don't need us to make this film. They'll get someone else. So what's the best thing? Why don't we just make this, make sure we get paid, and try not to embarrass ourselves, and let's just try to make the best remake of this that we can. And that's why so many of these remakes turn out like okay. Like they're a lot of times they're not like super awful and like on their own. It just comes down to this was unnecessary. And I feel like that's people saying, that's stars saying, if we don't do this, they're just gonna get like Bow Wow or whoever. Like eventually they're gonna get like Nick Cannon to do this movie. Maybe not now, but like someone who's left. I don't know who's left.
Right. Well, I think the more interesting thing to think about is who's playing which role. because for me, like the obvious, at least to my brain, the
Yeah.
obvious thing is that Kevin Hart will be John Candy's role and Will Smith will play Steve Martin's. But I'd really like for them to do the opposite.
Will Smith. Yeah, yeah, for Will Smith to be the John Candy.
If Will Smith was the, loud, annoying guy
Yeah.
and Kevin Hart was the straight man,
Yeah.
I think would also be kind of cool and play and maybe somewhat of like a flip on its head, at least in terms of their typical, what they would typically do. But I have a feeling it'll be the other. I think it'll be Will Smith as the uptight straight man, and Kevin Hart as the annoying, chip on his shoulder.
On the other side of this brand coin, to wrap up the film news for tonight, you've got this story out of the Hollywood Reporter. This also, I keep saying everything relates to the book. It really does. Leonardo DiCaprio's Appian Way inks first look deal with Sony, and first look deals got covered a lot in the book, especially with Sony, because you got to remember, as much as trash as you and I talk about Sony, and have in the how long has it been, 9 years we've been doing this show,
Wow.
a lot of trash talk against Sony, because really in the 2010s they started really the industry changed out from underneath them. It's not so much that they were making terrible decisions, which they were, but they were dominating or doing well with the old studio model of the mid-budget star vehicles, and you had Amy Pascal, who, again, for all the trash we talk about Amy Pascal, is a really good studio head and a really passionate movie lover, and really wanted to make good films, and not just make a quick buck, but make movies that she would want to see and that people would want to see, with and collaborate with artists. And so it's really, I feel bad for her after reading the book, because there's a whole lot of like, oh geez, like it's not really her fault. It's just like the studios and cinematic universes became a big thing at the end of the 2000s, and they were just super unprepared for it. And that was just not the way that they saw the industry going, and they didn't plan for it. So when you see, she's not with Sony anymore, but Tom Rothman is the head of Sony Pictures, and he's got this first look deal with DiCaprio's production company, multi-year first look film deal with Sony Pictures Entertainment. And what a first look deal pretty much is any film that Appian is going to produce in the next few years, Sony gets the first right of refusal of that. So they bring it to Sony and say, do you want to make this? And Sony says yes or no. But it always goes to them first. And it's really, it's cool. It's never like good or bad to see these deals in the trades. It's always just like, oh, who's the studio? Who's the production company? Is this exciting? I think this is a cool thing. I like Leonardo DiCaprio. This is exactly what Sony exists for, and it used to exist for, which is original properties. What did Tom Rothman say? He loves Leo DiCaprio. His producing and acting instincts are both driven by service to the best material in the world. At Sony, we feel like we just landed a rare GOAT deal. And then DiCaprio said, over the 3 decades in the business, Tom has never adhered to traditional Hollywood norms, never once taking the safe route. He truly values filmmakers and their vision, and is extremely supportive of the theater-going experience. I could not be more excited to enter into a new phase of partnerships with Sony. So that's films, and they've got TV and documentary deals with Apple. And previously in 2016, Appian had a 3-year first look deal with Paramount, which we just mentioned. And the films that came out during that period, among them were The Revenant and The Wolf of Wall Street. So this is good for Sony, and it's good for moviegoers. It's good for people like DiCaprio and that's the trend right now. I don't want to say the trend like it's trendy. That's the way things are going. The stars make enough money doing whatever. DiCaprio hasn't sold out or done anything like that. He's just been a really good actor in really great movies. But you've got people like him or Robert Downey Jr. with his production company. They make enough money. They start production companies. They start producing their own projects, and then they start signing first look deals with studios or streaming services or whatever. And that's sort of the new independent filmmaking. Not bare bones indie, but that's the new mid-budget project. Is you just have stars saying, all right, well, I got enough money, I want to make good movies, and I still like the old studio system and I want to keep it alive. So the ecosystem somehow reaches homeostasis, for now at least. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this first look deal?
The first look deals are always good for the artist, as an entrepreneur, as a purveyor, a seller of their own art. You sell, you're selling your ideas before you have them. And that's always a really good thing. And so, good for him. Again, it always protects the studios, because the studios get, the first look at your stuff, and they can always say no. So there's really no downside in it for anybody. It's just, everybody gets what they want. So and that includes us, the consumer, because we potentially get good things from good artists.
Last thing about reading the book, I keep bringing it back to this, I'm sorry. The last thing about that is, like, I love the Marvel movies, and I love, while I recognize that there are brands being sold to me, I fully enjoy franchise movies. It's just the kind of movies we grew up on in the early 2000s, late 90s. But we also grew up on a steady diet of just really great standalone films. So I feel like we, as the millennials, have an actually really great mix, or we're exposed to a really great mix of movies where, if you grew up in just a regular household, you have a love for both kinds of films, I think, without being too cynical about either. So I love the Marvel movies, and I think they managed to inject a lot of heart and character into big budget filmmaking. But one thing I sort of got from reading the book was, I don't think I've, not that I didn't give independent or mid-budget films a fair shake, because I think I do. It just it made me realize, like, not full-blown, like, oh my God, Disney's a monopoly, but I did finish the book and go, you know what? I really shouldn't, be so flippant about what franchise filmmaking is doing to the industry as a whole, because the industry has become, it always kind of was, but it's very blatantly right now about brand awareness for consumer products. That's what it exists for. These CEOs have admitted it. Bob Iger pretty much said so. They want to make good films along the way, but we're selling toys. We're trying to get you into theme parks. We're selling you T-shirts and backpacks. That's what it is. So anytime that we can get good movies that are independent and independent in content, it's not only just good for the industry, but it's also like, hey, let's not forget that those are great movies too. Speaking of movies such as that, let's transition into tonight's film, Dustin.
Let's do it.
We're here tonight to talk about the recently released Jojo Rabbit. And and by the way, happy birthday to the director Taika Waititi. He turned something over the weekend. It was
very informative.
Yeah, I know. He turned older. I don't know what it was, but I was logging into everything here tonight, and I just happened to see, like, oh snap, it was his birthday over the weekend. That's weird.
All right, well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday to the director. Dustin, tell me about this movie.
Jojo Rabbit was released last year, 2019. Like you said, directed by Taika Waititi. Also screenplay by Taika Waititi, although it is based on a book by Christine Lunens, something like that. Anyway, the story is, so we follow a young German boy named Jojo, who is growing up in Nazi Germany, and he is sold out. I mean, he is, absolutely a Nazi, and his and his best friend is an imaginary creation of his, but it is Adolf Hitler, a version of Adolf, maybe a projection of himself onto Adolf. So this Adolf acts a little childish, and so together, him and Adolf, they